Hey guys, Junie here, and welcome to my channel. Welcome back to those of you who've actually subscribed and or seen my video content before. I suspect that may be very few of you, but hey, I'm not complaining. Well, today I figured I might as well go through an Endwalker wishlist. I know it's probably too late for them to implement any of these wishes, but it would be nice to see these things in later patches as time goes on. Today I'm going to go over combat wishes, social wishes, housing wishes, quality of life suggestions, and of course the miscellaneous things. Let's get started. Alright guys, as I said earlier, I'm going to start off with the combat wishes. For these combat wishes, I have a small list of things that I'd like to see implemented. One of them being a lingering arrow option for when casting rays. So for example, let's say I'm in a raid, right? And I see someone's dead. You know, maybe it's a unsuspecting black mage who thought that they should just stay in their ley lines and that I'd heal them to full, even though it's a deadly attack, but that's, you know, besides the point. Yeah, you know who I'm talking about. Anyway, that being said, you know when you're targeted by someone, like a healer, and they're casting rays on you, that targeting arrow only happens visibly for like a split second. You only see it very briefly. I think that when you're casting rays and you're hard casting it, it should just show. That way, let's say you don't have a macro in the chat, or even if you do have a macro in the chat, double reses do happen, but I feel like this would totally prevent it because the person can visually see, oh hey, that person's already being rezzed. It would be really nice to see that, or at least have that as an option in the settings, so that way I'm not casting res on someone who's just about to get a res and maybe I just didn't know. Same thing for like, let's say alliance raids and I'm trying to res someone who's outside of my own party. It would be really nice to be able to see if someone on their party, I almost said team, someone on their party, or if another healer or, you know, DPS or someone is actually already resing them. That way I can focus my attention elsewhere. And while we're at it, I don't see a reason why we can't just have a res icon next to someone's name or above someone's name, maybe if they already have a res, especially if they're not in my party. That way I'm not even targeting them and cycling and clicking on different people on the floor. I can just know, oh, this person already has a res. I can't tell you how many times I've died because a caster used their LB3. Especially red mages. I'm sure you all know or have seen plenty of funny videos on YouTube or other places online where people would be just going at the boss. Yeah, we're gonna get the clear, we're gonna get the clear. Red mage uses their LB3, everyone's blind and everyone dies because they can't see the next mechanic. One solution I'd like to propose here for that would be to add an option to basically remove LB3 animations. Obviously, we're gonna see the circle when someone casts it. We know it's being casted, but just seeing all those animations, even when you have very selective animations being shown, I think it's just way too distracting, but it's very blinding. I really like the animations for these LB3 casts, especially for like red mage, black mage, and summoner, but I don't like not being able to see the screen and dodge stuff, and then all of a sudden what should have been a clear ends up being a wipe. Another thing I'd like to see implemented would be a mass pass option for dungeon rolls. So instead of clicking on every little piece of gear and saying pass, 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 you could just hit like a check mark or something and it just auto passes everything. That way you're not wasting time clicking on all these different things and rolling as you're in combat, in a dungeon especially. Speaking of gear and rolls, I'd like to see 24-man gear, especially if it's weekly locked. So let's say you only have a chance at getting a piece of gear once a week, whether it be the 8-man raids or the 24-man alliances. I think that if you don't roll on something, it should be considered abandoned loot, regardless if whether or not other people rolled on it. So let's say everyone in your party passed on something and you're trying to get your weekly drop. Maybe you're not paying attention. Maybe you didn't get a chance to roll yet, but everyone else rolled, and now you're stuck with a piece of gear that you can't even use. You never rolled on it, and it's just stuck in your inventory, and your whole week is basically ruined. That happened to me once, and I'd like to see that completely eliminated, because I remember how devastating that was. It put me behind like a whole week worth of just gear in general, because I was trying to level my classes and I was trying to get gear for a specific class. And something like this is like super detrimental and just frustrating. I think it should just be considered abandoned loot. If I don't roll on it and I don't say, hey, I want this, don't give it to me. Just don't. Please. I beg of you. A more job-specific request I have is that for dance partners, so like let's say you're playing Dancer and you tag someone as your dance partner, you remember in the moment who is your dance partner, but maybe later on you want to cast Curing Waltz and you're just looking around like, where's my partner? Is the heal gonna hit twice? Is everyone going to get, you know, a good heal, or is that person all by themselves and the only benefactor to that heal? I'd like to know that. So something I was thinking is maybe there could be an indicator to show who your dance partner is that is persistent. So whether it be some kind of indicator next to your name, some icon, something, maybe they are flashing a certain color. I don't know. I don't know what the solution to that would be. But what I will say is that it doesn't make sense for Dancer not to indicate that in combat when Paladin has it for cover and Dragoon has it for their own tether. It makes absolutely no sense to me. Yes, I understand it's a persistent thing. If they're your dance partner, you're sitting there persistently with them, tied to them in that way, but I'd like to see it. I'd like to visibly see it. So, hey, I want to cast Curing Waltz. Is it going to heal the group? No? Well, I guess I'm not casting Curing Waltz. You know, it's just, I'd rather know so I can wait for a better opportunity to cast these things just by having that information visibly in the moment. My final request on my combat wish list would be to just rework Cape Westwind. At this point, it is a meme. Remember this guy? You probably don't. Why? Because maybe as a Sprout, you only saw him briefly for like 2 or 3 seconds before he was just annihilated by your group. You don't even see mechanics anymore. He had a whole fight of mechanics set up. There were different things you had to do. I remember when this content was still, it wasn't relevant when I joined because I joined in Heaven's Ward, but it was somewhat new. It wasn't that old. And just playing through it, it was just like, I can't believe how fast he died. It's a meme. Just make it either, okay, I have 2 solutions. Either reduce the amount of damage you do to this guy so you can actually play the fight out, or buff him and make him an actual boss, kind of like other trials in the game. Maybe just, you know, take him and place him somewhere else, or just do something, please. It's a meme. I feel bad for the guy. He's being disrespected all the time. I mean, it's just hilarious to me, but I just don't think it's fair that with the MSQ dungeons, we're able to, you know, experience that, see all the cutscenes, this and that, blah, blah, blah. But then you get to that fight at Cape Westwind and you're just looking at him like, oh, this is a meme. Like, it's not fair. The fact that newer players don't have the opportunity to actually see the mechanics of the fight is just ridiculous, and at this point I don't even know why that's in the game if you're not gonna do something about this. This is insane. Now for the social part of this video, I'd like to just focus on the friends list. I'd like to see faster loading friends list, more friends on the friends list, adding notes to friends so you remember who the heck they are by the time you talk to them again or see them out and about. And I think you should be able to mass delete friends so that you're not refreshing the list every 2 seconds to see who's on your friends list. And I'd also like to see a mutual friends list drop. So let's say you friended someone and that person dropped you from their friends list. I don't think you should show them on your friends list anymore. It just drives me nuts seeing how slow that friends list loads. I've been playing the game for years now. I have more than 200 friends I'd like to add onto my friends list, and I don't think that the you know, link shells or cross-world link shells are really sufficient, especially if I'm trying to like send mail to someone, like Mog Mail or something. There's so many players in this game that having 200 people that you can add to your friends list is simply not enough. As far as housing wishes go, I'm not even going to get into the whole housing savage meme that's been going around, rightfully so. Instead, I'm just gonna focus on things that I think could be a little bit better just for housing itself rather than trying to acquire housing and all that. I'm not even going to get into that. So here's what I'm thinking. So let's say you have an apartment, right? Let's say you purchase an apartment. Apartment costs $500K, whereas a private room in an FC house costs $300K. I think that for that $500K, you should get some other extra advantage other than just a teleport. I don't think a teleport is worth $200K. That's insane. But, you know, I digress. I think we should have balconies in apartments. Now, the first time I thought about this was actually when I was playing PSO2, because in the private room rooms in PSO2, they have like a kind of an outdoor balcony thing where there's like a, if I remember correctly, it's like a sliding door. I'll show it on the screen if I remember to later. And I thought, oh wow, why can't we have balconies in the apartments? That way maybe you could have like a flower bed on the balcony and you can like crossbreed like different plants and stuff, because perhaps one of the biggest reasons why people want a house in the game is so that they can have access to some kind of flower bed area where you can just plant your stuff and then everything just like crossbreeds your plants and this and that or whatever. Now I am aware that there's some kind of like farming thing they're adding. I don't know what it is really in Endwalker already, but I wonder if something like this could be easily implemented into the game as like an added bonus when you have an apartment. Speaking of FC rooms and private rooms or private chambers, I think that when you go from one FC to another, you shouldn't lose your room. So for example, let's say you spend half your time in FCA during the raid season, but you decide to go to FCB during the off season. I think that you should be able to hit like some kind of like transfer button or something. Maybe you walk up to the Grand Company lobby and you tell them, hey, I want to transfer FCs, and you just go from one to the other. I think that would make a lot more sense than having to demolish your room, then leave the FC, and then, you know, go join another one, and then all of a sudden they have to buy it again. It's just so repetitive, especially like I've been in multiple FCs playing this game, and it's just every time I have to do it, I hesitate to buy a new room because it's just frustrating having to spend the gil over and over and over and over again. So I think that that's kind of an unnecessary thing, but I'd like to see FC transfers be a thing. That way you're not losing your private chambers and how it's set up. Now that we're focused on FCs, while I'm on the topic, I would also like to see, when you're in the workshop, being able to see the whole list of things you need all at once. You submit it all at once, all in one go, so you're not just throwing things in over and over and over. Just let me just submit everything I need. I don't care if I have to watch all 3, you know, cutscenes of it being constructed. I don't mind that. Whatever. Just let me put everything all at once without having to submit them. I think right now you have to submit them in like groups of 3. I could be wrong. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on that. But I just think it's like so ridiculous, like having to add things over and over and over. You already know what you need for the final product. Let me submit everything all at once and get it over with. The next 2 things I'd like to see for housing are somewhat related to each other. So the first one would be yard skins. So let's say it's the autumn time or the summer time or whatever. I think it'd be neat if you could swap out the ground of your yard to something else. Now, I don't know if this is structurally difficult with the way that everything is set up in the housing areas, but I'd like to think that you should be able to swap the ground of your yard to like snow or sand for the summer, or leaves for autumn, or petals for spring. That way you're not buying like 80 like clumps of snow to like haphazardly place on top of each other in like some kind of jigsaw puzzle. And I'm just looking at it like, what is this? It looks awful. That's part of the reason why I don't really put a lot of snow in my yard, but I'd like to just, you know, maybe for the part where you're dealing with the exterior, if there was an extra option underneath for the ground layer, and you could just put like snow, sand, or whatever, and maybe you can have ones you can even purchase. I don't even care if it's in the MOG station that I'd have to purchase this. I would purchase it if I needed to. I would really, really, really like to see this. Now, the second thing I'd like to see, now hear me out, this is gonna sound kind of crazy, but bear with me. Glamour dressers for housing. Did I just say that out loud? Yes, I did. You heard me correctly. Glamour dressers for housing. Think of it. Let's say you're an FC leader and you have a house. Maybe it's a small house, maybe it's a medium house, maybe it's a large house, whatever it is. And let's say during certain seasons or holidays, you have a certain setup you like to use. So let's say you have an autumn setup, you really like your autumn setup, but it's getting closer to Halloween and you want a haunted house. Instead of redecorating the whole house, you know, from scratch every year to do the same puzzles or the same things, why can't you just have a glamour option where you just hit a button and it remembers what you had for your items, and then it just puts it back where it was last year? It would save so much time. It would make so many opportunities and possibilities. Another thing this would also address would be our peers, because I've noticed that a lot of our peers will have things like cafes or places for like wedding photos, like wedding photo shoot studios and that kind of stuff. And sometimes they even have like fake shops and stuff like that. It was really, really nice. I hear you, I see our peers, and I like what you're doing. I just wish it was easier and more seamless if you're going to do things on a seasonal level, whether you're an FC, an RPer, or just a regular person like myself who's just looking around and saying, hey, I'd like that. I really think that a glamour dressers for housing would be really, really neat. Even if there was a limited number of glamours you could have between all of your housings, I think it would still be worth it. Moving on to the quality of life suggestions, I think the first two are going to be kind of related. So for the first one, I'd like to see summoning bells near Heaven on High and Palace of the Dead entrance locations. It's just so annoying when you praise a bunch of sacks and you have all this gear and stuff and you need to go sell it, but you don't have anywhere to put it, so you have to leave the area, go sell it, come back, appraise again, leave the area, go sell it. It's just so tedious. It makes no sense to me. Just add a summoning bell, please. Just add it right there. There's no reason. Another thing too is if you're putting things aside like echo drops just for House of the Dead, for example, Heaven on High, I'd like to see that being available so that you don't have to go teleport somewhere and then come back, especially since you have to be there in the zone, in the area, in order to queue up in the first place. Something else I want to mention, or the second thing following up on that, would be that I'd like to see faster appraisal times. Maybe even a mass appraisal option. I don't see a reason why I can't just hit a button once and then appraise everything and it just shows me, hey, this sack gave me this sack gave me this, like in a list. Or even just faster appraisal, like the Boja stuff. That stuff is like instantaneous. Why can't it be like that? Another quality of life suggestion I'd like to add that's unrelated would be for there to be some kind of icon next to the Orchestron rolls when you're rolling on them that tells you whether or not you already have it in your Orchestron. I can't tell you how many times I've rolled on something thinking I needed it, and then when I went to go use it, it said, hey, you can't use this. You already own it. And I'd like to see the same thing done for even the Triple Triad cards, just telling me, hey, you already have this in your collection. The last thing I'd like to add for the quality of life suggestions would be to stop capping crafting scripts and gathering scripts. Let's say you go out of your way to craft maybe, I don't know, 20 of an item to turn it in for crafting scripts. I don't think you should have to stop halfway to spend your scripts and then come back and trade them in again. It's really annoying. I don't see a reason for it. It's not like you're capped on how many of these scripts you can earn in a week or anything like that, so I really don't see a reason for it, and it's just kind of annoying. Last but not least, I'd like to add the miscellaneous wishes of my list. Now, the first one is probably the most important one I'm going to list. I'd like to see Spanish as a new language, even if it's just written or subbed or something, or like it doesn't even have to be dubbed. Just put Spanish as a language in this game. There's too many Spanish-speaking people playing this game, especially in the States, especially in South America, especially, you know, this and that or whatever. There's so many Spanish-speaking players, at least on the American servers, that I find it kind of like silly that there's not a Spanish option. Just write it down, sub it, I don't care. Just add Spanish as a language. The next thing on my miscellaneous list is probably something that a lot of you have forgotten about. Rightfully so in some ways, but there is a companion app to this game, and I'd really like to see an option to send your retainers out on ventures on the app. Otherwise, I don't really see a reason to use it unless maybe it's patch day and I'm trying to like sell stuff, but I have like an appointment or something and I'm somewhere and I can't be at home, or maybe I'm just away from my computer, I don't know. But in general, I'd really like to see an option to send retainers out on ventures on the app. That way people have a reason to even download this thing. Something else I'd like to add to the miscellaneous list would be to remove gender lock on all glamours. As soon as they remove the gender lock from the wedding dress, for example, there are plenty of people out there wearing the dress on male characters, and I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. And it seems like the community really enjoyed that as well, so I think it would be pretty neat if they just gradually went through things or different pieces of gear per patch and then just made that update for anything that was gender locked. Speaking of glamours, I think that we need more glamour plates. I think there should be at least one glamour plate per job or class in the game. So, for example, you'd have glamour plates for every crafter, every healer or every tank, every this and that, maybe even one for blue mage. I really think that each job should have its own unique glamour plate. I think it would add an extra layer of customization to characters that I think people would appreciate. I know I mentioned the wedding gear before, but I think something else I'd like to see would be more wedding venues. So, for example, in Ishgard, there's a chapel. It looks really nice. Why can't you have your wedding there? It doesn't make any sense to me. I understand that maybe the whole reason why the wedding venue is where it is so that any player, regardless of how far they are into the game, can attend. But I don't see a reason why you can't just take the chapel and replace it in that area as like a skin for the wedding. I don't know. I just think that it'd be nice to have more wedding venues in the game, especially since we're now having anniversary things going on as well. Something that I saw mentioned by someone else, I don't remember exactly who, was the idea that there should be a minion that you can customize. Imagine having a minion that you customize in the same way that you customize your companion. So let's say you customize your chocobo, you put different gear on them, different combinations, and you can even dye them to be different colors. Why can't you do that with a minion? I think that'd be a really, really nice and neat thing to add to the game, just as a fun little add-on. Last but not least, I'm going to add my one very selfish request to this list. I would like to see a Grimoire Weiss minion. I don't think we have a minion so far that is a book that floats and follows you in the same hovering way that the pods do. I'd really like to see that. Alright guys, well I'm just going to wrap up the video now, and I hope that you all enjoyed it. I will ask though that maybe if there's something you'd like to see added to the game for Endwalker, I'd really like to see you guys write it in the comments. I do read the comments and try my best to reply. Yeah, I hope you guys all have a great day. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in Endwalker. Junie out.